Hey everyone, ready to dive into some serious geographical mysteries? We're taking a deep dive into lost continents today, and this one's a real head-scratcher.
It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about the planet, when you start digging into these lost worlds.
Right. We're talking about huge chunks of land that have seemingly vanished, leaving scientists baffled for centuries. And our source for this deep dive is a fascinating YouTube video from Son and Sightseeing. It all starts with this lost continent called Argoland, which, get this, was located somewhere near Australia.
Yeah, Argoland's one of those mysteries that's captivated geologists for decades. It's like you look at a map and it's clear that the continents sort of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle.
Like South America and Africa, they just kind of...
Exactly. But then there's this gaping hole where Argoland should be. So the big question is, where did it go?
Well, the initial thought was that it had been swallowed up by the Earth, right? Like completely obliterated by those massive tectonic plates.
That's what scientists initially suspected. It's called subduction. And it's a process where one tectonic plate slides under another and it can drag entire land masses down with it.
So kind of like a geological magic trick. Now you see it, now you don't.
Pretty much. But here's the thing. Subduction usually leaves behind some pretty telltale signs. Mountain ranges, volcanic activity, you name it.
The Earth's crust likes to leave a message, huh?
Exactly. But with Argoland, the evidence was just off.
Off in what way? Like the geological equivalent of a ransom note?
Kind of. There were remnants, bits and pieces scattered around Southeast Asia, but they were far too old to fit the subduction theory. It's like finding dinosaur bones in a modern-day backyard. It just didn't add up.
Okay, so if Argoland didn't get swallowed whole, what happened to it? Did it just, pack up and move?
Well, in a way, yes. It turns out that Argoland fragmented, broke up into smaller pieces called microcontinents, and these pieces drifted thousands of miles over millions of years.
Continents, they're not as anchored as we think, huh? More like giant, slow-moving rafts.
Exactly. And eventually, these pieces of Argoland collided with Southeast Asia, which helps explain some of the unusual geological formations we see in that region today.
So it's like a slow-motion car crash, but on a continental scale, with islands and mountain ranges being thrown up as the wreckage.
It's a complex process, but that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah.
And, understanding these movements isn't just about piecing together ancient history. It's about understanding how life itself has evolved on this planet.
Right, because if the continents are constantly moving, it means that the environments they support are also changing, right?
Exactly. And that has huge implications for evolution. Species have to adapt to new climates, new predators, new competitors. It's a constant struggle for survival.
Survival of the fittest on a global scale. And speaking of which, how does this whole Argoland saga tie into Pangaea? That's the supercontinent we all learned about in school, right?
Right, and Argoland is actually a crucial piece of that puzzle. By mapping the movements of these ancient land masses, we can reconstruct the history of Pangaea and how it eventually broke apart to form the continents we know today.
So Argoland is like a key that unlocks the secrets of Earth's deep past. Pretty cool. And this deep dive gets even wilder. From a lost continent, we move to a mysterious line on a map, the Wallace Line, an invisible border in Indonesia.
It really makes you appreciate the incredible diversity of life on Earth, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So imagine this. An invisible line drawn across the Indonesian islands. On one side, you've got tigers, elephants, orangutans. On the other side, completely different creatures. Kangaroos, Komodo dragons, birds of paradise.
And the weird part is, there's no obvious physical barrier. No giant wall or ocean trench separating these two distinct groups of animals. It's like someone drew a line in the sand and said, different ecosystems start here.
It's like a real-life game of Pokemon, different regions with their own unique creatures. And here's where things get even more interesting. Remember Argoland and that whole continental drift thing we were talking about?
It's all connected. As Argoland drifted and eventually collided with Asia, it literally redrew the map, creating new islands, altering sea levels, and basically shuffling the deck of life in that region.
So, Argoland's epic journey is responsible for the diversity of life we see in Southeast Asia today. That's mind-blowing. But it gets even weirder, because in the middle of all this, scientists in the Philippines made another startling discovery. The remains of an ancient human ancestor, unlike anything they'd ever seen before.
This wasn't just another fossil. This was Homo luzonensis, a completely new addition to our family tree.
A new twig on the human family tree, right here in our own time. That's insane. So what's so special about Homo luzonensis?
Well, for starters, they were incredibly small, maybe even shorter than some modern-day humans. And their anatomy, it's this bizarre mix of modern and primitive traits.
So they were like the evolutionary equivalent of a platypus, a hodgepodge of features that shouldn't really work together but somehow do.
Exactly. It's like they were frozen in time, preserving a snapshot of human evolution from millions of years ago. And here's the kicker. Scientists believe that Homo luzonensis might have actually hitched a ride on those drifting fragments of Argoland, explaining how they ended up in a region that would have been incredibly difficult to reach otherwise.
So Argoland might hold the key to understanding not only the evolution of life on Earth, but also the story of our own ancient ancestors. I mean, talk about a deep dive. Okay,
Right.
so we've been talking about these lost continents, these like ancient mysteries, but this video got me thinking about the future, like what's next for the continents. I mean, they're always on the move, right? So what happens millions of years from now?
Well, scientists predict that in about 250 million years, a new supercontinent could form based on current projections of tectonic plate movement.
250 million years in the future. Do they have a name for this future supercontinent?
They're calling it Aurica.
Archa. Wow. Okay, so does that mean all the continents as we know them today are just going to glom back together again?
Yet that's the general idea. The Americas would drift eastward, eventually closing the Atlantic Ocean and merging with Europe and Africa.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, like what would it even be like to live on a supercontinent? Would it be like one giant country or?
Well, assuming humans are even still around in 250 million years, it would definitely mean a radical shift. It's not just about borders and geography, but the whole climate would be different. Life on a supercontinent comes with challenges.
Right. Think about it, Pangaea, that massive supercontinent from Earth's past. It wasn't exactly a walk in the park for the creatures living there, I bet.
Exactly. With Arca, we're talking potential extremes. Vast scorching deserts in the interior, maybe with crazy storms along the coasts as weather patterns shift on this massive scale.
So some parts of Arca might be like a paradise and others a total wasteland.
It's possible. And, with these kinds of massive environmental changes, you'd almost certainly see mass extinctions, but also incredible bursts of new life forms as species adapt to the new world.
It's like hitting the reset button on evolution, kind of both fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Definitely keeps things interesting, right?
For sure. But okay, enough about the distant future. What about these hidden microcontinents we keep hearing about? Are those real or are we talking like Atlantis level myths here?
Oh, they're real, all right. Or at least the evidence strongly suggests they exist. It's just that they're hidden beneath the ocean's surface.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So how do we even know they're down there? I mean, are we talking ancient maps and legends, or is there some serious science going on?
It's all about cutting-edge technology and some clever detective work by geologists. They use a technique called seismic surveying, which is basically using sound waves to create images of the Earth's crust.
Oh,
It's like giving the ocean floor an ultrasound.
so they can actually see through the water and map out what's down there.
That's incredible. So two of the big ones that the video mentioned were Iclandia and Zealandia. What can you tell us about those?
Well, let's start with Icelandia, because a lot of people don't realize that Iceland that we see on the map might just be the tip of the iceberg, so to speak.
Wait, so you're telling me Iceland is even bigger than it looks? I mean, those glaciers are already pretty impressive. It's possible that Iceland is just a small part of a much larger submerged landmass. Some geologists believe that Icelandia could actually connect to Greenland, Ireland, even parts of Scandinavia.
Wow. It's like a whole hidden world down there. And what about Zealandia? That's another one that always makes me wonder. Is New Zealand really just the tiny bit that's poking up above the water?
Zealandia is potentially massive, like 6 times larger than Madagascar.
Yeah.
It's this vast submerged plateau that's been slowly revealing its secrets to scientists.
And how do they figure out what these sunken continents were like, millions of years ago when they were above water?
Well, they use a variety of techniques. One is to study those tiny zircon crystals you were asking about earlier.
Good.
Remember how they're like time capsules?
Yeah, they can tell us about the age and origin of rocks, right?
Exactly. By analyzing zircons found on the ocean floor, scientists can start to piece together the geological history of these submerged landmasses. They can also look for clues in the shape of the ocean floor, the types of sediment present, and even the magnetic signatures of the rocks.
It's like a giant forensic investigation, but instead of solving a crime, they're uncovering the lost history of our planet.
And what's really exciting is that we're only just beginning to scratch the surface of these underwater worlds. There could be countless other hidden continents out there just waiting to be discovered.
That's incredible. Okay, so from the mysteries of the deep, we've also got some pretty strange stuff happening right here on dry land.
Right.
Like, this video took us on a wild detour through some other geographical oddities I'd never even heard of.
Oh, yeah. Our planet is full of surprises.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think about the dingo fence in Australia? Have you ever heard of it?
The dingo fence. Yeah, it's like the Great Wall of China, but for dingoes. It's massive.
What's the story there? Did it work? Did they keep the dingoes out?
Well, it's been surprisingly effective at controlling dingo populations in certain areas, but it's a great example of how human interventions in nature can have these ripple effects that we don't always anticipate.
What kind of ripple effects are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, it's changed the balance of the ecosystem. Some species that were preyed on by dingoes have thrived in their absence, while others have struggled because of increased competition for resources.
So there's like a domino effect. Changing one thing can impact everything else in ways we might not even imagine. It really highlights the interconnectedness of ecosystems and how even something as seemingly straightforward as building a fence can have these far-reaching consequences.
It's a good reminder to think carefully about our impact on the natural world, even when we're trying to do something beneficial.
Right. But okay, let's talk about something a little more uplifting. Like, what about that aquarium fence in Turkey? That one just sounded cool.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example of how we can use technology and design to connect with nature in new ways.
Imagine strolling along the coast and stumbling upon this 50-meter stretch of transparent fence filled with all sorts of marine life. It'd be like having a window into another world.
It's a fantastic way to showcase the beauty and diversity of marine life, and it also serves as a sort of living laboratory for researchers studying coastal ecosystems. It's a win-win. But okay, let's dive into something truly bizarre. Now, the Movilee Cave in Romania, this one blew my mind.
It's like something out of a science fiction novel, isn't it? Completely sealed-off cave system that's been isolated from the outside world for millions of years.
Millions of years. And it gets even crazier. They found life down there. But, like, how is that even possible? No sunlight, no fresh air. It just doesn't seem possible.
And yet, life finds a way. The creatures that inhabit Movilee Cave have adapted to survive in complete darkness. They evolved to rely on chemosynthesis, rather than photosynthesis, using the energy from chemical reactions to produce food.
It's like a whole other branch of life on Earth, completely separate from the world we know.
That is wild.
It really makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden beneath the surface of our planet, right? Right. And speaking of hidden wonders, did you see that part about the Cave of Crystals in Mexico? Giant crystals, bigger than buses. It looked like something out of Superman's Fortress of Solitude.
It's a truly awe-inspiring example of the power of geological processes. These massive selenite crystals formed over millennia in a hot, water-filled cave, creating a scene of almost otherworldly beauty.
Nature is just full of surprises, isn't it? And speaking of surprises, who knew that even the ocean had its own version of black hole?
Ocean black holes, yeah, it's a pretty mind-bending concept. It turns out that these massive whirlpools or eddies can form in the ocean, and they act a lot like their counterparts in space.
Wait, so you're saying there are these giant swirling vortexes out there in the ocean that can trap anything that gets too close, like ships and whales and stuff?
Well, it's not quite as dramatic as a Hollywood movie, but it's true that these ocean black holes can trap water debris, even marine life, for extended periods.
Oh, so these things are huge and powerful, and we had no idea. Okay, officially creeped out now, but okay, back to dry land for a second. What about the dancing forest in Russia? Those pictures are wild. What's the deal with those crazy twisted trees? Have scientists figured that one out yet?
The dancing forest is one of those enduring mysteries that continues to baffle scientists. There are plenty of theories, of course, ranging from unusual soil conditions to strong winds to even electromagnetic anomalies, but no one knows for sure what causes the trees to grow in those bizarre shapes.
I kind of like that some things remain a mystery. You know, it keeps things interesting. But speaking of mysteries, how about those underwater crop circles in Japan? Turns out it wasn't aliens after all, right?
Nope, those intricate patterns on the seafloor are actually the work of male pufferfish. They create these elaborate designs to attract females during mating season.
Talk about dedication. Those pufferfish are putting in some serious work just to impress a mate. Okay, one last stop on our whirlwind tour of geographical oddities. Tell me about the Great Blue Hole in Belize.
The Great Blue Hole is a massive marine sinkhole, off the coast of Belize. It's a popular spot for divers who are drawn to its crystal-clear waters and the chance to explore an underwater cave system that's home to a variety of marine life.
It's like a giant underwater cathedral. And speaking of extreme environments, the boiling river in Peru just sounds impossible.
It's a pretty incredible sight. A river with water so hot that it literally boils. It's all thanks to geothermal energy.
Oh.
The river is heated by magma from deep within the Earth's crust.
It just goes to show you how much is happening beneath our feet that we're completely oblivious to. And then, after all of that, the video ends with a mystery that has baffled historians for centuries. The search for Cleopatra's tomb.
It's amazing to think that we still haven't found the final resting place of one of the most famous rulers in history. You'd think with all our technology and resources, it would be easy, right?
Right. But despite countless expeditions and all sorts of tantalizing clues, Cleopatra's tomb remains one of history's most enduring enigmas.
You know, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. All these incredible discoveries, these lost continents, these hidden ecosystems.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how much we still don't know about our own planet. It's humbling, isn't it? We tend to think we've got it all figured out. You know, we've mapped the globe, explored the oceans. But then something like this comes along, and it just throws everything we thought we knew into question.
It's like we're constantly getting these little glimpses into the Earth's deep history, and each one raises more questions than answers.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? The thrill of discovery, the realization that our planet is far more complex and mysterious than we ever imagined.
It's like that feeling you get when you're reading a really good book and you get to the end and you realize there's a whole other chapter you didn't even know about.
Exactly. And the best part is these discoveries aren't just about satisfying our curiosity. They have real implications for how we understand our place in the universe, for how we address the challenges facing our planet.
It's like by studying the past, by understanding how the Earth has changed over millions of years, we can get a better grasp on the future.
Precisely. It gives us a sense of perspective, a sense of deep time that can inform our decisions and actions today.
It's both humbling and inspiring at the same time. You know, it makes you want to grab a map, a compass, and just head out to explore.
Who knows what other secrets are out there waiting to be uncovered? What incredible discoveries lie hidden in the depths of our oceans, beneath the ice caps, or even in our own backyards?
It's a good reminder that the age of exploration is far from over.
If anything, it feels like we're just getting started.
Well, on that note, I want to give a huge thanks to Sun and Sight Siri for creating that incredible YouTube video that sparked this whole conversation. I know I learned a lot, and I hope our listeners did too.
And as always, we want to hear from you. What blew your mind? What questions do you still have?
Yeah.
Join the conversation. Let's keep exploring these mysteries together.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep those questions coming. Keep your eyes open to the wonders of the world around you, and most importantly, never stop exploring.